Friends, hello, how are you doing? I hope everyone is well. Let's talk about what happened today in the market. So, markets start off pretty good today. We were seeing some, some things were doing okay, but I think Big Bear took the win today. I mean, Big Bear just had a great day. I mean, just even when the market was, just things were doing okay, and obviously the market sold off in the later half of the day today because the bond market news came out and, raising and 10-year treasury yield jumped from 4.48 to 4.58, reaching its highest level since February. So the market went nah. Okay, so with that too, we're seeing a situation develop with AI stocks 100%. AI stocks are still hot. Everybody wants them. They want to be a part of them, what's happening with them. So we're in this situation right now where a lot of AI stocks are still doing very well. Palantir is still at a very high level here. But let's kind of focus on Big Bear, focus on Soundhound, and let's go right into that. So friends, thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate it. I really mean that. I'm flattered that people listen to me yap about stocks here, as I am obsessed with the stock market and stocks and the growth of where we're going with our portfolios. So let's talk about Big Bear. So, like I said, Big Bear had a great day today. We touched $4 again, well over $4 again. We were almost at $4.15 today. We just didn't hit it, but we hit $4 here around right before noon. We hit $4.12 right before noon, and then the market, as it usually does, starts to sell off a little bit, tries to find where it's going to go. But then the news came out about the bond situation, and then the whole market just went boop. But Big Bear was still in a very good position even at that point. Big Bear was still at a very 370 380 level, so still very a lot of people probably in some profit range today, even with the the loss. So obviously, if we didn't have this news come out today with the bond market with the yield, what I'm talking about here, Big Bear could have ran back to the 430, maybe 440, maybe. It was wanting to run here. I was expecting it to run. Like I was texting a friend. I was like, I think by 3 o'clock today, 2:30, we could be at 440. So, but the second run never came. The second run never showed up because with the yield news that came out here. So it's a situation now of, I think the evidence is pretty clear before us that Big Bear is trying to run. The enthusiasm, the FOMO, and everything, the what if with investors is there. So here's the big thing with what's going on right now that you're hearing about a lot with Big Bear right now, and it has to do with a lot of these AI stocks in general. So the dome. Okay, the golden dome for America. So Trump has been talking about this. Is nothing new. Trump's been talking about this even before he won the election. This was something that he was talking about on the campaign trail. But now that he is the dude, he's getting money together. He is, they're putting things in place, and a lot of people think, and this defense bill that Trump is talking about, and two, you've heard me say this, Trump's first campaign when he was president first time, he spent so much money on defense. I mean, he broke the budget on defense. Okay, great. If you're an investor in defense, you had a good run in there. So now with this, Trump is essentially doing the same thing. Okay, great. So we have an arrow where to focus on as investors. But with this situation, even this just 5 years later since Trump came out of office the first time, now we're in the situation where Trump is still very much focusing on defense, but it's not so much like ships, planes, and all that stuff. That stuff is still going. It's great, all that kind of stuff. But now we're really in this tech situation where these tech companies are becoming defense companies. I mean, Palantir, we can talk about that all day. That's been Palantir's bread and butter here, what's really gotten them up and going here. But Big Bear has fell into this new well of, it seems to be, it's turning into an endless waterfall here of defense deals. And that's why a lot of us are becoming very obsessed with Big Bear. And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that. Being an investor, I'm going to tell you right now, being in the stock market for, 8-10 years, however long I've been doing this now, I can tell you that being an investor is like being a detective. You've got to start putting clues together. You've got to start following things, and I don't just invest in something willy-nilly here. What's the revenue? What's the deals? What's the futures? What the future deals? Where are they going? In Big Bear right now, that's what we're doing. We're watching a lot of that. Money is changing. It's getting better. There's still debt, but it's being focused on now. Finally, the new CEO, Kevin, he's been with the company, but now he's the big dog. He is the CEO. He has a defense background. He has a relationship with Trump from the past, and obviously now because Big Bear has been getting these defense deals. So what I'm trying to say is that obviously I do think, and we're kind of seeing this already, this defense bill of what Trump is talking about, it's a whole broad bill. It's like almost $200 billion, okay? And this is essentially what we know at this point. It could raise, it could, who knows? It could be cut in half. I don't know, but it's a lot of money here. So if Big Bear even got a slice of $1 billion of the whole deal, it would be life-changing for the company. So with that, where I'm going with this, a lot of people have been saying, Big Bear could be in a position where they get another big deal to be a part of something in this new defense situation that with the Golden Dome, whatever's going to be a tentacle off of that. And obviously, I do find myself going in saying that, with Palantir being rubbing shoulders and being in the pockets of the Trump administration, they will probably get the first phone call. They will probably get the first pick of whatever deal that needs to be there for them, obviously. But Big Bear undoubtedly is in the White House too, so that's a very positive for us as investors with Big Bear. It's not, if this was a situation where we were like, man, Trump's really spending a lot on, defense on defense, and Palantir's doing well, man, Big Bear's got a similar bread and butter, software, what they do. I wish they could get a defense deal, or I wish they could be a part of this, golden drone domes deal. That's a hard word for me to say. I don't know why golden dome deal, but we're not saying that. What we're saying is essentially the contrary. It's the positive. It's Big Bear is already, they've already got multiple defense contracts with the United States government at this point. So there's no reason that they wouldn't get a phone call, wouldn't get a message, something to say like, hey, we have this over here that we need taken care of. And probably too, I would imagine that Big Bear is probably a little cheaper than Palantir, just because they're a smaller company. They're obviously more hungry. I don't want to say more hungry, but they're hungry for anything they can get at this point. Palantir at this point, every deal they seem to get is like over $500 million or $1 billion. That's why the company's growing at such a fast rate. But Big Bear is in this situation. I really do, and I've been saying this for a while, friends. I know some of you are probably so sick of me saying this, but it's the God's honest truth. With all these deals that Big Bear has acquired at this point, the financials will change this year, undoubtedly. Now, obviously, it's going to be by Q4 of 2025 before we can look at all of this and go, it was a better year, obviously. A great year for them, a better year, but if Big Bear from today, any time the rest of this year, they were to get just one nice, just a beautiful, juicy deal, and maybe it comes out of this whole defense situation coming out right now. I don't know. We're hoping, we're guessing, we're gossiping. Okay, that's what we're doing. We're doing some detective work here. We're trying to see maybe this could happen. We're trying to put the lines on the board here. Maybe this will go here. If they could just get maybe like a $400,000 deal, it would change everything with Big Bear. Okay, it's not thousand, 100 million. That's if they were to get a 300 million to a 400 million to 500 million, $500 million. a deal, and obviously it would be broken up X amount of years, probably 3.5 years, because that's usually how they come. It would change everything. It would change everything overnight with Big Bear. It would tell us as investors, okay, well, we've already gotten all these other little deals, these nice little deals, and now we just got this one huge mega deal. This is going to seal up the situation of Big Bear probably hitting at least $190 to $200 million in revenue this year, which would be phenomenal and life-changing for the stock, the company, everything. They could pay off debt. They could have money in the bank. That, a lot of things could happen. And more than likely, it would be great publicity for the stock because, this is what we saw with Palantir. Palantir got a lot more business just from their defense contracts that they started acquiring almost 3 years ago at this point. So, like I always say, I'm optimistic that, we could see more happen here with Big Bear in defense contracts, even some rando contracts at this point. I think, we would gladly take. So, the golden nugget, the one we want, is a defense contract with the United States. That would be great. I mean, they don't get any better. They just don't get any better. Now, this is obviously being broken up more, but this is happening a lot faster than I think a lot of people thought, because this is just the way Trump's going right now. He's talking about stuff as he's trying to sign stuff for it to happen. So this Golden Dome for America's situation, it could be happening a lot faster than we think, and we could start to see some contracts be, shielded out here. Now, I am curious to see if they'll be made public. That's my other curiosity in this. Are they going to say Palantir is leading the software for, the Golden Dome, that we're going to do over America? Like I said, I'm optimistic here that I think something good will come out of this. Either way, Trump is really putting a lot more money in defense. And this is something that we have to pay attention to as you're putting money in these tech stocks. Because right now, Big Bear and Palantir, they're just bringing in money right now from the United States government. And you have to pay attention to that. Palantir has essentially built their whole business portfolio off of government contracts that bled into other contracts from other companies. So that is what we hope within a year's time, year and a half time, could start to unravel with Big Bear. And I think that would be, it would be amazing what could happen with Big Bear if that were to happen. Now, one more thing I'll say about Big Bear, and I'll shut up. I do think that Big Bear obviously is looking for an organic push here. I think it's trying to find it. I think it would have found a higher $4 position here. I think Big Bear is obviously trying to get to a $4.50, if not more, $4.80. $5 is obviously that's what we want. I think it can get there. I just don't know how much the market's going to allow it at this point. In the situation too is that, I'm watching the volume. Big Bear's doing better than it's done here in the past 2 months. That's obvious, okay? And I'm not so much scared of Big Bear falling apart at this point. I think Big Bear is in a very healthy situation right now. The lawsuit situation that has been unfolding here with Big Bear, I've said this from day one since this has come out here. Every 24 hours to 12 hours, there's a new article. There's a new not a new lawsuit, but a new law firm going after Big Bear. Because they have a certain date here in June that they can only push this. So after that, this should be wrapped up, dust in the wind, and that will be out there. But I think too, a lot of investors, they just don't even care anymore. They see it as just lawyers being blood-sucking, and they're just going after an easy situation right now. And I really, probably after June here, will never hear about it again, unless something terrible would unfold. But I don't even think that's happening at this point. So Soundhound, Soundhound had a good day. It was doing well. It was trying to get back into a $10.50, $11 range. And then, of course, when the news came out today, just like everything else, Soundhound kind of just, kicked the bucket here with the market. So it's a hard conversation because, listen, I'm very bullish on Soundhound, but I am too in this situation where I will tell you not to get too high in a buying position right now with Soundhound. I would probably tell you not to buy Soundhound at $12 to $13 if it were to find itself in that range again, because I think the playground, as the market is going to allow right now, as we see, Soundhound especially, is going to play around in this. It's going to be in this playground around $8, $7 on a bad day, $8 on a normal day. $8 to right under $10, just a normal day for Soundhound here. It's going to bounce around those numbers. $11, $12, good days, market's running hot. We're going to see something $12, like, that's really good. That's probably more or less the organic range for this right now, because Soundhound, yes, had a good quarterly here recently to start off the year, but it was lower than what they had here in Q4 for 2024. But obviously, that was all the deals in 2024, just like boom, boom, boom. They all piled up on each other. They all were running down the river into the dam, and then boom, they all hit at the same time. And that's why Q4 for 2024 was their biggest quarterly they had ever produced, which is great. And then we saw Q1 come out here for 2025, and it wasn't bad, but it wasn't as big. So I think a lot of us were more hoping that it would at least be even with what they had done in Q4 2024, or just right under it. But it was a significant drop, but still good. And the main thing is they made more money this Q1 in 2025 than they did in Q1 of 2024. So that's a great start to the year, and it's a great testimony of what probably could be coming this year, that they could just have a great year. I'm not expecting Soundhound to report like a $300-400 million core, yearly revenue earnings. If they could at least get into a place where they could find themselves, repeating the process of producing a $35 to $40 million each quarterly, that would be very positive for a lot of investors. Get on this plane where they're just, producing level quarterlies instead of like this staggering stuff. The staggering stuff is only going to go on for so long, where investors are like, either way, they're doing good. They're doing better. But, I think still, like, when we talk about bigger money being involved, what's going on here, they're going to want to see more stable numbers come out with Soundhound. But I'm not saying anything bad about Soundhound. Like, listen, I love Soundhound. I was here yapping about this thing when it was $2. But, I'm watching it, and I'm just going to tell you, just be careful how high you're buying into Soundhound, because if you're buying in at $12 and then it drops to $7, guess who's the first person you're going to come and, say something nice to? It's going to be me. It's going to be me 100%. So I get it. I get all the good comments. I get all the bad comments, and not the comments hurt my feelings, but, I hate to see people get stuck in position. So if I can at least say that, just be careful how high you're buying in, because I think Soundhound still needs to prove itself a little more this year. But I think it's going to. I think it's going to have a positive year. It's still doing well. It's getting business overseas now, so it's really spread out its tentacles into what it can be more here this year. So, friends, look, I'm super excited about what's coming here in the market. The crypto market's really pushing here, doing very well. But yeah, Big Bear, we're gonna watch what happens here. I'll talk about other stocks here this week here very soon. SoFi, get back into SoFi, what's going on over there, and yeah, friends, take care of yourself, and I will talk to you soon. Bye, everyone.